I guess how much success have you guys seen across the country when districts do this, put in a clear backpack policy?
Yeah, great question on the clear backpacks, and I don't see necessarily, a lot of success or necessarily failure with that. I think it's kind of um, I don't know that there are a tremendous amount of differences in having the clear backpack as opposed to a regular backpack. Let me explain why. I think that we have to be careful not to allow ourselves to think, oh, I've got a clear backpack, so I'm going to see everything that's in there. Well, when you start thinking about the items that a student might put in their backpack, gym clothes, a number of books, whatever it is, then it becomes pretty easy to once again hide a weapon in there. So the point I'm making is that even with clear backpacks, if a student's walking through with a clear backpack and you can't see everything that's in there, then you've got to be prepared from a policy standpoint to search that backpack. You can't just rely on, being able to see everything. There's also one cautionary thing also, and this is a side note, absolutely, is that, those backpacks, those clear plastic backpacks, there's no way they're gonna be as durable as the cloth backpacks. So um, again, I applaud any time that we are attempting to do things to create a safer environment, and any level that we can do that, and certainly if you're able to identify a gun through a clear backpack, great, but you have to be prepared for that weapon potentially being wrapped up in gym clothes or something along those lines.
So, what are the best steps that a district can take to try to prevent a situation from like we had earlier in the week?
Yeah, one of the things that we have to understand here is that there's there's no magic within this. There's not one thing that's going to solve the situation of weapons on campus. It really is a multitude of things. But one of the things that I strongly suggest is that if the school doesn't have a multidisciplinary school safety team, that they establish one, and this becomes the team where that role of school safety really resides. And certainly, the SRO should be a part of that team. Secondly, I think that, again, I'm talking about the human element here, and we can't forget about the impact and the importance of the human element. And we're talking about a clear backpack, we might be talking about technology, but if we don't have the proper human element in there, then none of that is really going to help us very much. So we got to make sure that we're building good relationships within that school environment. And that's part of a good culture and climate around school safety. For instance, school resource officers, when uh, we train them that one of the most important things they're going to do is to build relationships in that community, kind of community based policing, if you will. And what we find is that the better relationships that SROs and other adults have with students and with parents, the more likely we are to receive valuable intelligence that can help us stop an act of school violence before it ever occurs. As a matter of fact, there's a database called the ASV database, and that stands for Averted School Violence. And that database is housed with an organization called Safe and Sound Schools. And there are more and more stories within that are making it become very clear to us how important those relationships are.
What about metal detectors?
Yeah, great question. Metal detectors, and I'm a big fan of security technologies when used appropriately and in concert with that human element, if you will. So metal detectors are certainly another layer of security that can have some effectiveness. Some things to realize is that we've got to make sure that we're maintaining that equipment, that we're training people how to use it appropriately, and those people that we train are very consistent in the job that they're doing and very focused on what they're doing. And we have to have good policy and procedure around it. And let's start with this. What if a student is walking through and sets off the metal detector? What then? What's the next step? and how are we doing it, who's doing it, and so policy and procedure becomes very important. And there's other security technology out there too. There's some great weapons detection systems that have really come online over the last few years that can also be helpful. But I'll say this, and I think this is an important piece of the metal detector conversation. All schools have a number of perimeter doors, some more than others. If your perimeter doors are not secured all day long and consistently, then you may be creating and setting up a false sense of security with the metal detectors. So everything has to work hand in hand for it to be effective.
Um, it seems like cost is probably just the prohibitive thing with that, that districts aren't doing it because they don't have the money. Is that about right?
Well, you know what? I kind of get very tired of hearing the money situation. I mean, what price do we put, on the safety of children in schools? Uh, and I think that we as a society, um, surely we can figure out a way to fund that level of safety for adolescents at school during the school day.
Going back to the clear backpacks, how prevalent are those policies across the country?
Clear backpacks, I just don't see a lot of that across the country. It seems to be when that happens, more kind of reaction or a response to, a bad thing that's happened. In other words, we found a gun on campus. I'm not seeing schools that initiate that it wind up being a long-term solution for a lot of reasons, and some of the ones that I've laid out and described. I'm not criticizing the school district at all. Again, I applaud a school district that's trying to figure it out and trying to create a safer environment.